Okay. So start off with our kind of opening questions here that we, and then we're going to move into the workbook. So what's the main thing that you're thinking about when you look at the imperfect? What should be the thing that runs through your mind in the way you translate or interpret?
Something that was happening in the past.
Right, it's past tense.
Okay, so it's past, and then what's the other element of it in the past?
It's not may have not been a completed past. Well, something it's like was doing or were doing.
Okay,
Right.
yeah. So it's
It was an ongoing.
yeah, something ongoing, and there's different ways it might have been happening at regular intervals, which we would call an iterative. Happened to occasion. It may have been just something that you're looking at. It was ongoing, like the man giving instructions to what Paul, like I was saying. And then they also have what they call the inceptive, which is the other one that they introduced, where they add the word begin or began, I should say. Okay, so how do you form an imperfect verb? What's the first thing what do you start with?
With an augment, whether it's an epsilon in front of a consonant or an elongated elongation of a vowel.
Okay, that's correct. I maybe didn't ask the question the best.
I was going to say the stem.
You start with the stem. What,
No.
what stem do you use?
What stem do you use?
Use the stem of
The original form stem, right? The
Active.
present active and
present active.
They're using the present stem. And the reason we say that is because we're going to have stems that are going to change form, and not with the imperfect. We're going to use the present stem. And then you do exactly what you were talking about, Joe, that you do the augment or lengthen the verb. And then you do what?
Add the ending.
Add
The ending.
And the ending is going to be unique to the imperfect. Well, it's not unique to the imperfect, but it's different than the present active indicative. Okay, very good. So let's go to any questions on any of that? And again, encourage you to do it. And actually, I noticed in the workbook, it says this on page 95, but it was part of the textbook. And that is to take your verbs, start back in the earliest chapter, which I think is chapter 2 of the verb, and just practice writing out. I don't have them all done. I've got some of them done like this, but just practice writing out all the verbs in the imperfect form. So doing the conjugations of those would be very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to read through some of this because some of it's classroom into other details. They're going to say an adverb, which most of us, I think we know enough English to understand this, but adverbs are closely related to adjectives in that they qualify the meaning of words, verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. And only in rare instances do they do substantives, because most of the time you're going to use an adjective for a substantive. I should have asked you that. Adjectives are used primarily with substantive. I just keep reading now, you get this. Adverbs are used to express relationships of time, place, manner, and degree by answering questions such as how, when, or where. And if you remember high school or even junior high English, we probably remember this. In a broad sense, prepositions, conjunctions, particles, and interjections are adverbial, and that's very true in Greek and as well as English. The most common way to form an adverb, and this is important, is to take an adjective in its plural form and replace the N at the end with an os, or with a sigma and os. I'm thinking of the ending. So we have here kalos, the adjective for good or beautiful. And if we drop this at the end, change the end to, well, what they're suggesting is they're making a little bit different change, but you add this os ending, which is the adverbial ending. Kalos would be beautifully then. Well, where we I ran good. No, you say I ran well. So well is if you're modifying a verb. Okay, this is technically the way that we're gonna form this. So let me go back here. So when they're saying that you're going to, in its genitive plural form, so what's our genitive plural form of this? It's gonna be calone, and you drop the noun and you add the sigma. Okay, and I don't exactly know why they go to the genitive plural, except that it's a form that you're just changing one letter at the end. If that actually technically is the way it's done, or if that's just a suggestion that they're making, it could be that. What does the genitive case do? What's the base idea of the genitive case?
From.
It describes. It's description. Exactly. So
Oh, that's
an
right.
adverb is describing. It's describing an action, another adverb, an adjective. It's doing something to modify. So it would make sense then that you're using a genitival form in this way.
So the most common way to form an adverb is to keep an adjective in its genitive plural form and replace the noun at the end with a sigma. So
this noun is gone. We put the sigma in here.
right, so when we see kalos, are we looking for gender and number?
We're not.
We're not.
No. You're just, it's going to be this form no matter what.
Gotcha. So it's not a plural
Right. Nope.
adverb.
Nope. It's just an adverb. And eventually, and I don't know if it's in, see, I'm trying to remember our vocabulary for this lesson. Let me go back and look at our vocabulary for just a second here.
I guess.
Yes.
Silly question.
The last word in our vocabulary in the textbook is the adverb host. And host is, we translate as or like. So that is an adverbial particle, or it's an adverb. And now we're adding that to a form of an adjective and making the adjective adverbial rather than just adjectival.
So if we're using that word in a sense, like kalos is, like you said, beautiful or good.
Right.
So kalos is still beautiful or good, but we're describing an action rather than a thing.
Right. So that's why we would say he performed beautifully, or he performed well.
Wow, I don't even have English in my brain right now.
Okay.
Yep,
So.
get it. That works.
12.1c, the conjunction a la, and I do appreciate they do this because I'll be honest, I think some of the modern grammars, they don't take this position as strongly. Interesting, right there it says strongly reverses the direction of thought or presents a strong contrast between two clauses. So when you're going to see an a la conjunction as opposed to de, a la, you should be looking in the context and saying, even if you don't recognize it, it ought to cue you in. There's a strong contrast being made between this, and it may not always be immediately apparent, but in the mind of the writer or the speaker, there was a contrast there they want you to pay attention to. De is going to be but in a number of places, but it's more mild. Well, you guys went running, but I stayed home. We could make that a strong contrast, but maybe we don't care about a strong contrast. I apologize. Let me answer the phone. It's probably a telemarketer or something.
Those are my favorite calls.
Good morning, this is Dan.
Was it?
It's somebody that wants to build my website. I probably ought to let them do that because our church website could use some help. Anyway, okay. So there's Allah. Okay, the next thing, I don't know if you remember looking at this, but they're asking the question, explain the irregularity of the second declension noun, Jesus. Okay, anybody want to tackle that one?
Sure. I responded I've said only 3 forms appear in the New Testament in the in the GA, the lid, and the, well, there's a nominative in Jesus, then there's a GA lid and vocative in the same end time. It's Jesu and then accusative Jesu. So
So we don't have a yay sub.
right.
The lid, our lid ending is just expressed in the Yesu at all kind of, so it,
Right.
so this is a lot of times what they say is this is largely a non-declinable noun. Most of the time you're going to see the name Jesus in scripture, Yesu. It's just going to be Yesu. Occasionally you're going to find it with the sigma and sometimes with the noun, but it's not going to decline like other nouns. And we have other nouns like that in Greek that don't decline. And usually it's proper names. They don't change a whole lot. Okay, so that's just, they want you to recognize that because you're going to come across the name Jesus a lot and it's not always going to match what you're expecting. It's going to be interpreted a lot more in terms of context. The next statement there, the present stem of the verb does not distinguish between simple and continuous action. The present stem should always or should be associated with progressive or continuous action, regardless of the time indicated by the augment and or ending. So that's the present stem. And that is going to affect the imperfect because we're using the present stem for the imperfect. Okay. So the next question, the imperfect tense uses the stem of the what tense?
Present.
Tense on which to build its form. Therefore, if one sought to conjugate the imperfect active indicative forms of luo, one would build on the present stem, lu. Okay. So what are the three component parts then of the imperfect active indicative?
The augment,
Mm-hmm.
the verb stem, and the ending.
Very good. Okay. And just for clarity, I put the imperfect ending just to be clear, but verb ending is fine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they're kind of, the next question is kind of reiterating what we just covered in the last question. What process does one go through in order to form an imperfect active indicative verb?
Perfect. You add the augment and then
There we go. Okay. Okay.
I didn't hear that. Say that again.
Oh,
I didn't hear.
she said you take the perfect stem,
Mhm.
present stem, excuse me, add the augment, and then add the imperfect ending.
Okay.
And that augment's going to change, which our next two questions are going to address, or the next three questions I think are going to do this. The epsilon at the beginning of the word is the blank, which indicates that the verb is a secondary tense or one that expresses past time. So what are we?
Augment.
Augment. Okay,
short one.
I agree. The verbs that begin with a consonant form a
Syllabic augment.
syllabic augment. And because I stumbled over that, I remembered it real well when I was answering that question, because I could not remember how to form an adjective out of the word syllable. But it forms that by adding
Eps.
to the beginning of the verb stem. Very good. Verbs that begin with a vowel form a
Temporal.
temporal augment by lengthening the vowel to the corresponding long vowel. And I'm going to be honest, I understand the syllabic. See, I don't even know how to put the emphasis on it.
Emphasis.
But the syllabic augment, I understand that because you're adding a whole extra syllable by adding a vowel in the beginning. I'm not exactly, this is something I maybe need to look at, why they call this other one a temporal augment instead of just an augment. Because technically a syllabic augment is also temporal because it's indicating time. It said that back up in the question at the top. So this is something I don't understand, I guess, in Greek. I had to pour through all my Greek grammars I have and see if somebody can answer that question.
Does it add a syllable? A syllable? A syllable?
If If you add just the epsilon to the beginning of a word, it does.
When I'm talking about the temporal augment.
Well, I agree. You're not adding a syllable to it because you're just lengthening the vowel that's present there. I'm not exactly for sure why they call that a temporal augment. Why don't they just call it just an augment? I'm not for sure. Other than maybe it indicates time, but that's what the augment is doing in the first place. So anyway, I don't have the answer for that. You didn't answer.
Because it was a past time, maybe, and it was just temporary. I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, but you're going to be lengthening the vowel. Say so. This type of augment results from the
blending or construction or contraction. Excuse me. I can't read my own writing.
This is. I have to tell you this. We'll take a moment for a bit of levity. My wife and my daughter had me listen to this comedian that was on Conan's show, Conan O'Brien. I don't even know how to say his name right. First time I said it and I was like, well, that's not the way it says it. Anyway, but it was a guy that was talking about back in the 70s, and Peg remembers this. I don't, maybe Joe remembers this. When they went from abbreviations of states to 2-letter abbreviations, so that it wasn't mass, M-A-S-S-S, M-A-S-S, it went to M-A, things like that from Massachusetts. And so he was talking about the team that was hired to do this, to come up with these 2-letter abbreviations. They were struggling with this, so they decided to hire a contractor. Oh, wait a second, a contractor. Which I thought was really hilarious, to make the contraction thing. That I was laughing so hard listening to this guy talk about this process. Okay, back.
Well, I do remember using mass and neb and cal and ariz, and ala, and it changed also FLO, Florida, but I just don't remember exactly when it did it, but it was just like I do remember using those longer descriptions of the states.
When I was a kid, I used to watch a show called Zoom on public TV, and it was produced in Massachusetts. So if you wanted to write to them, they always had mass, is what they always said at the end, which I remembered that. So I guess that was still at a time that we were using these others. Okay, enough levity, back to the main subject at hand.
I think the main reason it changed is because of technology. They just wanted to limit it to 2 data spaces on a computer.
Is that the main reason?
That's my theory on that. It's just like when the Y2K came, they had expanded the date field from 2 endings to 4 ending, right? There was a reason for it.
Sure.
So I'm thinking, okay, for data and the way things were in the past, in the 70s, when there was beginning to load things, it was easier to do two data points versus 4 or 3. It was inconsistent. The field was inconsistent because mass is 4 letters, cal is 3 letters, so ariz is 4 letters, right? So it just makes it inconsistent for data and storing, and so going to 2-letter system made it more efficient. That's my theory.
Yeah. Oh, I don't doubt that at all. And now look at today. I mean, I've got so many pictures of my grandkids, and they're like 20 pictures, or we're all taken within 3 minutes of each other, maybe. So it's like, yeah. I remember a time when you'd have those pictures on your phone. It's like, man, my phone's going to run out of space. I got to get rid of all of these but one. And now I just keep all 20 of them. So anyway, okay. So 12.2c, the augment of a compound verb comes
after the preposition and before the verb stem.
I didn't even answer that right. I said between, and yeah, after makes more sense because I was thinking between the preposition, but then I ended up answering the second part of it. And I don't know if you remember learning this when you learned about answering questions in school and test taking, but they say you should read the whole question before you answer it. And some kids, and I was that dumb kid just now, that you get that far, like, oh, you put that answer down. And if you read the rest of it, then you're like, oh, wait, that doesn't work if I finish the rest of it. Anyway, yeah, so it comes after the preposition, before the verb stem. 12D, 2D. The verb of being, I me, has no,
Middle or passive function.
okay, and it doesn't have a middle or passive function in the present tense either. It's always active. And that's because you're never just existing for yourself or being made to exist. When you use that word I me, you exist. 12.3, the imperfect tense may be translated in various ways. However, it always represents what kind of action in the past?
Continual action, or continuous action.
Okay. Number A under that one, the blank imperfect gives a vivid description of what was going on in the past time.
The descriptive, however, they're on their book, they have the dotted lines, and that's more of the repeated. I think they have the lines or the diagrams in the wrong spot.
Exactly. That one should be aligned with an arrow at the end of it. I did the same thing. And they have the same problem with the next one, I believe.
Right.
So the blank, what do we have for B?
Repeated or iterative imperfect.
So it shows continual or repeated action in the past. So that should be the dashed line.
That should be the dashes.
Mhm. And then number C,
The inceptive should be the one with the dot in the beginning.
yeah. So they actually don't, none of those pictures actually represent the descriptive. You have to just add.
Correct.
That. Yeah.
So the line with the arrow doesn't, you don't think that that's what they should have put with descriptive?
Oh, you mean the last one down there?
Mhm.
Yeah, it could have been, but there should be an arrow on the end of it. Actually, all of these
Should have an arrow.
all of these technically have an arrow because it doesn't tell you about the end of the action. It just tells you that it was ongoing. It's not looking at its completion particularly. That's not what the imperfect is doing. Okay, so before we go any further, for A down below, you have to conjugate all the verbs that you've studied to this point. So I'll have to stop here until you get that done. We're not going to do that. But I would encourage you to do that. It's a good exercise. So here we go. So we'll start off with you, Joe. Do you want to start with the first one there?
Sure. 12.4b, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's tote, ikuomen, tes, phones, autu, noon, deuketi, akuomen, autes. So my rough translation is, then we were hearing the voice, his, now, but no longer we are hearing it. So then we are hearing his voice, but now we no longer hear it.
Okay. Okay.
And then is
What?
ikuomen translated we were hearing or we heard?
Just a minute.
Said, okay.
Okay. What was the question?
Okay, so autes then is the word for voice. It's saying it. Got it.
Yeah, and we're translating it because in English, voice is
Sure. Yes.
neuter. But it's autes is what declension
First,
and what gender,
feminine.
and so it's referring back to
Phone.
Phones.
which is also first declension and feminine.
Sorry, Joe.
Nope.
It's okay.
It's a
Anytime. No, it's good to stop if you have a question. I do it all the time. And I apologize now. All right. So is ikuomen translated we were hearing or we heard? I said we were hearing in the imperfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
On what do we base your answer? It said, we were hearing, this is in the first clause, is a descriptive imperfect, giving a vivid presentation of what was going on in the past time. So that's what I said. That's why I based my answer. Is the eta a syllabic or temporal augment? I put temporal. So
And why do we say that it's temporal?
because it leads or goes into another vowel. And I also put that then there was a change point, the but now. So that's what why I made it a descriptive.
Okay.
Why is noon translated but now? I think I just answered that. When the Greek literally reads not now but, and I just put it's a day is postpositive.
And I always add it's post-positive, but we translate it first in English. Because I'm wondering, it'd be interesting to look up and find out, are there other languages that also use post-positive conjunctions other than Greek? And I'm wondering, if modern Greek, you still use post-positive conjunctions? Because think of that, we say it's post-positive because that's from an English perspective. But for the Greek, they always put it second and it was never a problem for them. So
Right.
well, it wasn't technically post-positive for them, I would think. Anyway, that's just a thought I had. I'd never thought about that before until I was answering that question. So, sorry.
I think they like Greek is very emphatic language. They like to have emphasis. I'm seeing words that have emphasis are typically placed in the beginning of its clause or towards the front. And so they're just saying now, but, it's just like that now. So I think that's just the way they spoke.
Sure.
What is the difference between a kuomen and a ku? Oh man, did I say a kuomen and a kuomen? Okay, a kuomen tense is imperfect. A kuomen is in the present.
Okay. My answer, yours is absolutely correct. All I said is the former is continuous in the past and the latter in the present.
That's describing imperfect and present.
I just decided to answer it without using the word imperfect. It just.
Oh, okay.
And just to be clear, I mean, please, I don't take this as an insult, but I presume you both understand why it's called imperfect. It's imperfect because it's something in the past that's not completed. So it was ongoing in the past. If it was perfect, it would mean that it was done.
It's just like our maturity.
It's ongoing. Yeah.
Exactly.
There is.
But we are trying to perfect.
Yeah.
That's mature.
Yeah. And there is in Greek a pluperfect tense. And the pluperfect tense is something in the past that happened, had a result, but is ended. Different than an imperfect. So it looks like that. So just you can look at something that
Interesting.
in the past was looked at as completed back there in the past. Okay. Number 2, do you feel comfortable tackling 2? Probably not.
I'm getting up close. The first part of it says roughly that on the one hand, the sinners are staying in the darkness.
Okay.
And obviously the next part starts with, but on the other hand.
And hutoi.
They.
Okay. No, it's hutas is near demonstrative, so it's not they, but if you take they and you put them near demonstrative, then it becomes these. So those over there, but these over here.
Okay, so but these circumcised. twice is, this is the come one, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are coming from the kingdom of God,
They're coming,
out of,
no, ice is
into.
into. We kind of have it in, we kind of have this emphasized twice because it's part of the
Right.
word, and
Mhm.
then this separately into the kingdom of God. Okay. Yeah. And I would make one other change, and that's with the first word. I think because you're contrasting kainoi with hutoi, kainoi would be saying those
Those, yeah.
sinners. So I had it on one hand, those sinners are remaining in the darkness, but these are entering into the kingdom of God. And I don't know if these, there might be some debate in the context whether you, if you add context, whether you want to say these sinners, whether you want to supply the word sinners, or if you're just talking about these people. Okay. So, question A, is scotia, is it dative, locative, or instrumental, and why do you say so?
So I would say locative,
Okay.
because it seems like a place that they
Okay. Exactly.
locate.
And you did get this, Dane and Manty. Those are two like second-year grammarians, or they've written a grammar that you would call a second-year grammar. They classified men da as a combination of the particle and conjunction that differs the two. So on the one hand, this, but on the other hand, that, which you already indicated that. C, is tu thau genitive or ablative?
Well, we translated it genitive,
Mhm.
describing the genitive.
Okay. Very good. Okay.
I feel like Joe had a lot more questions with his, but he really didn't. Oh,
No.
yes, he did. He had one more question.
Okay. Let's tackle one more. Let's tackle number 3 down here at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
Kath, Ameron.
Okay. Note the rough breathing mark.
Oh, Heymeron. Is that right? Yeah. No, it's Ameron. It's not on the left thing. Okay, Kath Ameron. Is that right? That's not the rough reading mark there.
It is. No,
Yeah, the next one.
no, it's a
Would
rough
be.
breathing mark.
The next one is not.
The next one, Heyman.
Is not.
No, that's a smooth
No.
mark.
Oh, I
Remember,
got the things turned the wrong way. Okay.
the rough breathing mark always points towards the word. Smooth points away from it.
Right. It's just been a while. I just have to look at this. Okay, Kath Heymeron. Amen, pros, humas, and to, hyro. And daily, I was with you in the temple, or with you all in the temple, plural. Kath Heymeron is often used to mean every day or daily.
In other words, that is, if you want to add this note on the end, you just want to put in the word idiom. It's their
It's
way.
an idiom.
They don't have a word daily. They don't. I don't know that I've ever come across because daily for us would be like taking the word day and adding post, turning an adverb. This is their phrase they use for. You have this in the book of Acts. It says in daily they were meeting at the temple. Daily they were coming together. And you also have. We also have a one. It's similar to this. It's kath oikos or kathoikon, which would be, we would say they were going from house to house, but that's not the way. So it's kind of their idiom, the way they're doing this.
So that means house to house, what you're saying?
Kath oikon would be, yeah, house to house. And so we have that quite a few different times talking about where they were meeting from house to house. So it's a similar idiom to this. Okay.
Okay. Explain why kata, spelled kath, is in this sentence. It's the Eliason process. Kata changes to kath when followed by a word starting with a rough breathing.
Okay. And when you drop that vowel off the end of this, what else does it do with that preposition? You remember? When you drop the accent in the vowel, it makes the preposition emphatic.
Emphatic?
It's, yeah, these are these emphatic prepositions that do not have. Which is
So
I've got to go back and look at some other details on this, but when we drop that out. Okay, go ahead then.
okay. So in that sentence above, you're saying with the preposition would have been kath. That becomes emphatic. That
Yeah.
becomes emphatic. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So Kathiman, you're almost really pronouncing those two words together in that way.
Kath. Okay.
But
Okay.
you drop the vowel and it doesn't have an article, so it's actually being pronounced with the word follows it, which they probably could do. I always think that when you have people that speak Spanish, it's like you just spoke two words that almost sounded like one word. And I think it's because native speakers, they have words that they do kind of just pronounce together. And a Greek speaking person, I'm sure, would do that. In English, we kind of break each word individually because we're not native Greek speakers. Okay, number C.
Okay, locate humas. It's accusative case. Parts of speech is a personal pronoun. It's plural in number. Function in the sentence is the object. There's no gender. And the lexical form is su.
Okay. Mark here. Are we good if we stop there for the day?
Yes.
Okay. So today's the 13th. Okay. Any other questions on any of this?
I just have a question on my on the computer. You know, I noticed that you do a lot of Greek in your when you write up your stuff, but I was trying to figure out how to put all the different. I can do some of the accents and things like that over letters because I added the Greek language template, and I found out where the keys are now, where everything, and I matched it all up. But some of those things I can't get, like, you know, when you do the lid case, how you get the little grave mark in the, underneath the letter, or there's some of those I don't know how you can do. Is it just tied to us to a certain font style, or is it something you can do with a keystroke? Do you know?
For me, it's a keystroke, but this is the key for both of you. If you're going to type any Greek, don't use a Greek font. Find on your computer or tablet, go look it up and find out and set up a Greek keyboard. I'm going to bore you with detail. When computers were put together, they have all these key combinations, tons of them like this. They're all laid out. Guess what? Since this kind of starts over here, this one up here in this corner, this is the English keyboard system. Greek, let's just say, is way down over here. And Farsi, let's say, is down here. You need to tell your keyboard, I don't want to use this. I want to switch to this. And I'm sure it's like that. You just have to go to your or you have to go to your system folder and set keyboard, and then you have to choose a different language. What that does is if you share that with somebody else and they don't have that Greek font, then it's going to, and I have this all the time. I have friends that write papers and such, and they write in Greek and Hebrew. And when it comes across to me, I don't have their Greek or Hebrew font. And so it prints it out in English, and it just looks like all these bizarre mix of characters. If you print it this way, if you set it up so you're actually using the Greek keyboard, then whatever font you're using, it's printing that font with Greek characters.
So
Okay.
you're saying this is affects the way it's printed for somebody
Well,
else.
this is,
Possibly.
yeah, because then whatever font, no matter what font they have, my document is telling them at this point, you're not showing these characters on an English keyboard. You're showing them with a Greek keyboard. And I have my computer, because I do this so often. I set up a keystroke. You can do this. So when I'm writing, I just have like a keystroke that switches to the other keyboard, and then a keystroke setting back. And it'll do that for Greek or Hebrew and back to English with those keystrokes, without regard to what font I'm using. Whatever font I'm doing, it just prints it in Greek, prints it in Hebrew. So it's not changing the font. So the font I use most of the time when I write is Gentium Basic or Gentium Book Basic. One of those two are the two that I use. And the reason I do those, because they're good ASCII fonts that go across platforms really well. So I just type, and when I go to type in Greek, I just hit this keystroke, and it just switches on my little thing up there to Greek, and all of a sudden now I'm writing Gentium.
Are you on Windows by any chance? Windows?
No,
No?
I'm an
Okay.
Apple fan. I'm an Apple guy.
Okay. Because we have that on a Windows 10 capability where I have 3 languages set up, and I could switch as I'm writing the input of what I'm typing in. And I've matched where everything is. It was funny when I was trying to figure out, most of it matches up to your English letterings, right? But like the sigma at the end of a sentence, it's a different one, is the W.
Yeah.
And the sigma in the middle of a sentence is the S. And if you want to capitalize that, it's the capital S on the English. But what the Windows will do is I can switch from English, and I switch to Greek, and I can also do Spanish because I do all 3. And so I'm able to, because I was writing a lesson study I was going to do a Bible study on Tuesday with some people. They asked my wife to do a Bible study, and I said, great. But she asked me, would you introduce it? Would you start? And I said, sure. And here's what I want to go into, but the most important thing is that they understand their position in Christ first, and start out with the gospel.
Yay.
And then that would get me going. But don't make it a lengthy one. Just make it that 1 hour and enough to, because she doesn't want them to, because there are people that say they believe, they hear, but it's just, is it hearing that, or do you really believe it? So she's asking me not to prove to them, but let the Spirit do this, but present it in the gospel in a way that makes a lot of sense, And so I've been spending time doing that. And I know what I want to do is, so I started thinking, well, I know I want to put in a word just to say this word means this. Here's the Greek word. She said, don't put a lot of Greek. I'm not. But I just want to let her know that what's important is to understand that this is the word, and this is what it says. And a lot of their misconceptions is because they don't understand the word in its correct use. Right. So I want to do this. So I was able to say, well, how do I put the Greek in there? So I said, well, I do it in Spanish, so let me do this in Greek, and I loaded it down. Then I just matched all the different keys. So I have that set up already. So I think now that because Windows has that capability, I can send it to you. I'll get mostly on a PDF. I could do people so they don't have that issue. But what I was thinking is that's a good thing that you said that, because I haven't printed it yet, so I wonder how it's going to come through when it prints. But what I had a difficult time finding was all the other things, like when you want to do a breathing mark over and with a grave or a non, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And
and so if you're using if you switch to a Greek ASCII text, then your colon, semicolon, quotation marks, the bracket symbols above, all over in the right-hand corner, and I believe the straight line, those are going to be your accents and your breathing marks. So the breathing marks, I believe, are the quotation mark and the comma.
And do you just hit like a control key, then that key, then the letter in the?
What you do is you hit the accent first or the breathing mark first, and then you hit the letter.
Okay.
Then it puts the
Right.
letter in underneath it. If you put it
Because in
after,
Windows,
it's going to put the accent after the letter.
because in Windows they do a control or a control shift, then the accent and then the letter. So that's what I was playing with, and I looked it up online, and I could the things that you mentioned are true, and I tried it, didn't work. So I was just wondering if it doesn't work in Windows. That's all.
No, it should, because this is something it's not just an Apple thing. This is across the board worldwide for computers that you basically are telling your computer, we're not gonna look for these, we're not gonna look for this stuff up here. We're gonna look for it down over here in this section. So from its point of view, this is Greek. It's not what you when you use a Greek font, you're really technically you're writing English, but with Greek characters is what you're doing up here. You may be actually spelling Greek words, but the computer would look at it, well, that's technically the English keyboard. But you come down here, no matter what you're doing, it looks at that, you're using the Greek keyboard regardless of font. Anyway, I spent some time going over this, and I found a Greek professor from the East Coast that did several pages of material helping men or people, man, I shouldn't say man, helping people understand how to do this for the exact problem that when you share documents and stuff back and forth, if those other people don't have the exact same font that you have, then they're not going to get, it's not going to come across right. So, and I've got friends that they're still sticking with their old fonts, and I keep telling them, in fact, even with your Bible program, if you grab words out of your Bible program and paste them into a document, you can actually tell your Bible program to pull those things as an ASCII font, which means that from its point of view, it's not just pulling that Greek appearing word, it actually puts it in the Greek keyboard for that. So I don't use that function very often, but that's the way I have it set up. I very seldom grab words off my Greek text and paste it into documents. It's just, I don't like taking my fingers off the keyboard when I type. I hate mice. I know people that like they're always doing the mouse, and I just like to keep typing. So I like keystrokes.
Did we ever get to the part about how you can do the subscripts? Or like, so if it's in the lid case.
Like the lid case, yeah.
Yeah.
When you have it set up like this, the option key on my keyboard, the option key in the IOTA gives you the IOTA subscript.
So if I had
I just have to keep playing around with it until I find it.
Did it work?
Nope, that puts a little cross up there.
Are you actually are in the Greek keyboard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Are you using Robin, are you using Apple as well?
Mm-hmm.
Macintosh?
Yeah, but I'm on a tablet with a keyboard attached.
Huh. See, I got the IOTA. I'm not for sure. I got the IOTA subscript when I did it. So I don't know what to tell you. I had to check that and just check myself on that. Okay, try this. Then the shift with the with the left side bracket, that also will give you a IOTA. You didn't get one there either.
Yep.
You just get the circumflex?
No, it gives me the
Hmm.
bracket.
And you are in, or so when you type, you are in it. So what's your font that you're using?
No, I don't choose a font. I just have a Greek keyboard with
Hmm.
my notes
Just-
program. Maybe
Just a second. Let me
if
check.
I was in a word processing program instead of just my notes.
That should not make any difference whatsoever. Huh. I wonder if you have to. No, I didn't see that.
See, I Googled how do you type Greek accents. And so everything you just said is right there.
I see some accents on that page.
I can get accents by, like, I don't know how to do it from the keyboard, but if I long hold the letter on here, it'll pop up the different accent options,
Oh, okay.
but it won't give me subscripts.
That's very interesting. Because I know I can do that on my phone. I can get others to do other things. I can do the same thing on my keyboard when I'm typing. I don't know what to tell you on with the.
It's all right. I don't have intention of using a lot of Greek typing.
But it's nice to know you can do
Mhm.
something if you have to. So, okay, I'm gonna.
Was that all on